So, hello. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Reverend Erin Goodman, and today I have invited my dear friend and spiritual counselor and ministry mentor, Sue Koehler-Arsenault, to speak with me and for the benefit of anyone who would like to listen in about a topic that's very personal to me right now, and that is approaching the holiday season when you're grieving or you're struggling with a loss or just feeling some pain in your heart and coming into what many people feel should be the most wonderful, happiest time of the year. And my hope through spending just a little time talking with Reverend Sue, who has quite a bit of experience working with hospice for over a decade and conducting somewhere over 200 funerals, I think, and memorial services I had read, that we might be able to bring some comfort to some grieving hearts. So, hi, Sue. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Erin, and thanks for inviting me to this very important and timely conversation.
Yeah. So this is my very first time ever having a conversation of this nature. So we're going to hope for the best with technology and just kind of jump in and have a conversation, much like we do when we talk to each other, but just in this case, inviting others who want to join in and watch later. So what inspired me to reach out to you, Sue, as you know, my grandmother passed in the spring of this year, and my grandfather had passed 2 years ago. And I heard, my mom and my aunts and people I love very dearly saying things like, I wish we could just fast forward through the holidays. I wish we could just not celebrate. And it just motivated me to just realize that there's so many people with pain in their hearts during the holidays. I know for me, transitioning through divorce in the last couple of years was very difficult during the holidays. But particularly today, I was hoping we could talk about grief and loss, and when you've lost a loved one. Some things maybe that you can do that you can share with us that can help to ease and bring a little more peace during the holiday season.
So you're right, Erin. There are so many people who are grieving, and as the holiday season approaches, begin to really dread the celebrations. In this culture, even when people aren't grieving and the holidays are approaching, we can start to feel pretty anxious about all the things that we have to do and the shoulds, the way the holidays are supposed to be. And when you're grieving, you often feel down emotionally, physically, and spiritually. So having that extra energy to meet the holidays as we think they should be celebrated can be especially difficult for people who are grieving.
So going into the holiday season, are there any things that either, if you have a friend that's grieving, you might be able to do to help them or offer to them, or if you yourself are grieving, you might be able to do sort of setting your expectations and going into the holidays?
That's an excellent question. And, Thanksgiving's a few weeks away, and that will be a time when families are together. And it's a wonderful opportunity to have the conversation of, well, what do we want to do? Because for most people, avoiding the holidays entirely really isn't an option. So first, to encourage the person who's grieving to really say how they're feeling and what they need and what they want. It's very difficult for many people, and often especially women, to actually acknowledge what it is we want and feel. And if we happen to be the head of household or the person who's responsible for planning the holidays, we can feel that extra pressure about creating what we think other people want
Mm-hmm.
and pleasing other people.
Mm-hmm.
So especially if you're grieving, creating that space for people to actually say, this is what I want this year. Being able to talk about the fact that there's going to be an empty chair that's normally filled with someone who's much beloved. Do we leave the chair empty? Do we perhaps place some kind of a memento of that person on the chair? Do we do the kinds of things that that person loved? Maybe it was dad, and dad loved cranberry sauce, and so we're going to have cranberry sauce because that's what dad loved. Or there were certain pieces of music or certain activities that that person did, and we do them, we talk about doing them, but maybe in a slightly different way, to both honor the person who's died, but to recognize it's not the same without them there. So having a really honest conversation sometime during the month of November and maybe at Thanksgiving can be a really helpful way to begin looking at how to manage the holiday season.
Yeah, I think what you were saying about the expectations of what the holidays should be, and sort of that desire to just kind of soldier on and make it all that it's supposed to be is important for all of us, but especially for people who are grieving.
Yeah, absolutely. And for some people, maintaining the traditions as they are will provide a structure and a feeling of safety that could be good for them, again, if they want to do it. But for other people, it may be saying, you know, this year I'm not going to bake the cookies. I'm going to buy them because I just don't have the energy. This year I'm going to shop online. I'm not going to go out downtown or to the mall because I just don't have the energy to do that. So sometimes creating some boundaries and continuing some things, but understanding that the energy just might not be there to do all the things that have been done in the past.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's very helpful. And, you know, as both of us officiate weddings, this often comes up at weddings as well, of how to remember and honor someone who's not physically present at the wedding. And I think what you mentioned I can relate to is just that everybody has different ways that they feel comfortable, whether it's talking more or something that's a little quieter and a little more private, you know, such as lighting a candle or having something on a table or having something right in the ceremony. So I imagine for the holidays, it could vary for different families too.
Right, and that it can, each person in a family is going to grieve the loss of their loved one in a different way. And one of the challenges can be our expectations that people grieve the right way. And often the right way looks like the way that I'm grieving, right? And so that can be a difficult navigation point too. It may be that mom wants one thing and my brother wants something else, and trying to have some flexibility and compassion for each other, recognizing that the loss is felt differently. And that can be a further complicating factor when sometimes in a family there's an expectation that we should be able to talk about this very freely. And I may be expecting that my sister can hear what's grieving my heart, when in fact maybe she just can't listen anymore. So I think part of it too is helping people recognize that the people we expect should be able to listen to us, especially within a family, are not always the people who can listen to us. So finding that safe person or that safe group to be able to share your feelings can be so important, because we can't always be there for each other in the way we think we're supposed to be.
Yeah. And I also, you know, just wondering about the around the holidays, in the time leading up to the holidays, going to parties, going to social events, how that experience.
Right. That's an excellent question. So sometimes what can happen is that friends or family members can think, oh, I'm going to bring this grieving person and I'm going to cheer them up and this will be the best thing for them. When in fact, the grieving person may not be up to the larger gathering. Maybe it's more comfortable with a smaller gathering, but may just want to opt out too. So that expectation that can come, that if we do these social things, that they'll be helpful to the person who's grieving. Yes, if the grieving person thinks so. Mm-hmm. So that, again, the sense of expectation, you know, we, as a culture, we're very uncomfortable with dealing with other people's discomfort. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes the desire of a friend or a family member to bring the grieving person to a party is because they don't like feeling, they can't sit with the discomfort of the grieving person. So I'm going to bring you to this party because if you feel better, I feel better. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So trying to get on the page of the person who's grieving without expectation. Mm-hmm. And so, inviting the person, but not, if the person says no, if the grieving person says no, it's really okay. And then there's a second part to the social atmosphere around the holidays. There's a lot of enticements during the holiday season for us to overeat and overdrink. And for a grieving person who may physically already be in a diminished state, the extra food, especially the sugary food, can really depress the immune system. People can perhaps drink more than they ought to, and that can create a whole new set of problems. So the social opportunities around the holiday season can be a mixed blessing. But again, remember, it's important to follow the direction of the person who's grieving and to not push.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts on creating new traditions? Is that either personally or with people you've worked with, about this whole idea of, do we keep things going the way they were, or do we try something completely new and different, like going out to a restaurant this year because we've never done that, or just something, going someplace warmer, I've just heard sometimes people talk about doing something that's just really very different.
Yes, and that can be very helpful, especially in the first year after the loss. And especially the closer the loss is often to the holidays, the more important it can feel to do something different. Again, having that free, safe conversation with the people who are involved, recognizing that not everyone is going to necessarily think and agree that what's best for me or what's best for somebody else is that we don't do what we've always done, or we do what we've always done. Trying to find that balance, recognizing that some things might work for some of the family, but it might not work for everybody. Really, really, really tricky, but not impossible.
So I think, Sue, what I'm hearing is honest conversations in advance of what people are feeling and what they feel up for, and what may or may not work for different members of your family or your group of friends can be a good thing. Yes. And again, it goes back to, we are all wired so differently. And the relationship that we have to the person who has died, it's a different relationship of a mother, a son, a sister, a brother, and it lands differently for each person. And often the one who was living with a person who died, whose everyday life was knit into that other person's life, often that is the person who's struggling the most. And to the extent that that person, the one whose whole life may have turned upside down because of a loss, to the extent that a family can stretch,
and perhaps defer to that person in the first year, that can be a generous act of love and compassion.
Mm-hmm. That was the other word, Sue, that was coming up for me, as compassion for self and for others in your family, in your group that are feeling a loss, of just meeting yourself with tenderness and compassion, and being able to be there in that way for others. That we may eat on paper plates this year, or we may do something totally like, and let's do that with love and and some sense of peace.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for those who have the ability to step back a little bit and really think about their own self-care during the holidays, and taking extra good care with exercise, with whatever it is that feeds my spirit and my body. There are some members of a family who can be more self-responsible in that way, and others who may be so mired in grief that they have a hard time getting out of bed. I mean, grief sometimes, healthy, normal grief sometimes really looks like depression, and sometimes it can become depression. And so being really tuned in to those who may not have the capacity for that self-care, and showing extra compassion.
Thank you. What about the role, the place of children in a grieving family?
That's another wonderful question. You know, children take us out of ourselves, and they are such bearers of light and joy. And in some cases, it's the children in the holiday season who lead the way and help us forget for a little while that we're grieving. And in some families, creating the holiday around what's best for the children really has the magic of helping everyone through the holiday. So to the extent that it's a value for that family to really create something for the children, it will often help everybody else too.
Oh, thank you so much, Sue. Honest conversations, compassion, self-care, listening to the children. These all sound very important for all of us all the time, but especially when we're in the midst of loss and grief and some struggle.
And it's an invitation during the holiday season to really remember why we are celebrating what we're celebrating. What are the meanings of the holiday? And when people are upset emotionally, when they're tired, stressed out, perhaps anxious about the holidays, reconnecting to their own spiritual roots, perhaps being part of spiritual community, perhaps meditation, prayer. It can be a nice time to give maybe someone a book of Advent prayers. There's a way in which our connection to the divine can help us navigate all of this. And so with a grieving friend, to help that person perhaps reconnect spiritually, that can provide a path through what can be a very challenging time.
Yeah. And I know for many of the clients I work with, a lot of them connect with nature as part of their spiritual practice. And so just getting out and taking a walk on the beach or in the woods or around the lake or whatever is in your, part of the world, or inviting your friend to come out and do that. That's definitely something people have shared with me. And I know for me personally can really help to recharge and help to bring a larger perspective to what I'm feeling.
Yes.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation with me. I know it's sort of just the tip of the iceberg with the work that you do. If someone wants to be in touch with you for spiritual counseling or ceremony work or any of the wonderful services you provide, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Thanks, Erin. They can find me on my website, which is RevSue, RevSue.net, or they can simply send me an email at RevSue@RevSue.net.
Did you see your cat walking through the background as you were saying that? She was sneaking by. Thank you, Sue. And I'm at eringoodman.com and Erin@eringoodman.com if anybody would like to reach out to me. So thank you very much for your time and for sharing your wisdom around this very important topic.
And thank you, Erin, for creating the space for the conversation. And blessings for you and your family as you celebrate this first set of holidays without your beloved grandmother.
Thank you, Sue.